Well, good day and welcome back. Well, today I have one of the most distinctive electric type bar machines ever created, and that is the Olivetti Praxis 48. And they're just a lovely example of modernist architectural styling applied to a typewriter. Probably the most distinctive architecturally looking typewriter ever made. Well, I'm really pleased to have the Praxis 48 in my collection now, and we're going to cover in detail all the controls and how it works and a little bit of a repair job I did on it and how I like it. So stay tuned. Well, you might notice that it does not have a carriage return lever. This has an electric or a motorized carriage return. And when I first got it, plugged it in and started testing it, I noticed when it would do the carriage return, as it got toward the left margin, it would make a squeaky noise, kind of slow down and barely make it, and it only got worse from there. So it turns out there was a motorized drive clutch assembly that was slipping, and I took this machine apart. Didn't think I could fix it, actually. I had my doubts, but I shot some footage out in the workshop of what I did to fix the carriage return problem. And this is the slip clutch for the automatic carriage return. It uses this phenolic disc with a spring in here as a shock absorber, and then it uses a cork surface that rubs against this metal disc, and you can see the wear pattern here. And the problem is that this is slipping. This is not gripping properly. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting out a piece of 400 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to use double-sided tape and stick it onto the metal disc here, and then I'm going to have to adjust the little bearing right here. There's an adjustment for how deep that center pin is. I'll have to readjust that for the thickness of that sandpaper and tape, and hopefully it'll grip. Okay, so I have some double-sided tape on the perimeter, and now I'm going to try to stick it on and get it concentric. And hopefully it'll stay on. Looks like it'll stick. Okay, now the fun part is putting this back on. So there's a coil spring in here, and the center of it, this little hook, I have to snag into this little part right here when I put this plate onto the disc. I set it on with this bracket. The short end of it goes underneath this slot here, held by this thing. There's a little spring that holds the drawband up out of the way of this, and then the other side of this bracket fits over these two slots, and you have two strong springs that you have to connect, pulling this plate back. So that's the clutch mechanism. We'll see if it works now or if we have to adjust this nut. So it looks like we're going to have to adjust it. So let's just try it. Oh, that's pretty good. Well, it works, but I have to adjust the nut. Okay, so what you do, you have to loosen this nut, and then there is a rectangular end on this shaft, and you have to back it off. And maybe try to adjust it to where it's not making any noise. That's a little quieter. It's not rubbing too badly. Okay, return. All right. So there are several notable blog articles I'll leave links to down below about the Praxis 48, and in one of them he makes mention of the fact that these power cords are quite rare. This connector is probably just unique to this model. There doesn't seem to be any other application for it online. So some people who acquire these machines without the power cord, they end up getting just an extension cord or something, cutting one of the plugs off and then hardwiring into the machine itself. Luckily, this one had the cord. It's in good shape and it works. And the cord plugs into this socket on the back of the machine like that. Okay, the power switch is right here in the upper left. It comes to life, carriage return, nice and swift. We will put a scrap of paper in the machine here, like that. Yes, a very fast typing machine. One of the most distinctive features of the Praxis 48 are the keys. It seems from the comments I've read in blog articles in the past, as opposed to the future, people are polarized about these keys. You either love them or hate them. So the key tops themselves are quite small. They look to be around a centimeter square. They have kind of a sharper corner on the back of the pad and more rounded corners on the front of the pad. But what's really notable about the styling of these is the key tops are kind of like on a little mesa or a plateau that curves back down to the wider key part itself. And so what that means is your fingertips touch the keys, but you have a lot of room between the keys, which I think is really handy for people that have long fingernails. Thinking about the era of when an office typewriter would have been used in the 1960s, mostly females, and most of them had long fingernails. This would be a really good machine for using with long fingernails because there's such good room between the keys. So I find the keys quite comfortable. And also because of the short key throw, my little finger on the A, I don't have any kind of a problem with interfering with the shift lock. One of the reasons is because the shift lock on the actual key, the key top is located to the left and rear of that platform. So it's as far away from the A as it could be, which is really great for me. I don't have any interference. I can touch type as fast as I can, and I don't have any problems there at all. So I really love the unique styling of these keys, and for me, they seem to be quite practical. And also, of course, they're bright green, which is lovely also. So the controls on the rear of the keyboard kind of have this interesting style here. They are sculpted, and there's kind of a U-shaped channel between the bottom of the key and the top, and most of these are dual function. So this is your power switch. So you'll see it looks like that when it's turned off. You press it like that. The red is much more obvious when you turn it on. You press it like that to turn it off. Very, very handy. There is a half space key. That's right. The half space key is mechanical. The machine's motor can be turned off and it'll still operate the half space function. Okay, there is a margin release key, and if you know anything about Olivettis, you know the other Olivettis in the manual typewriter lineups, they have this automatic indent feature where when you did a carriage return line feed to start a new paragraph, if you held down the margin release key while you did the carriage return, it would stop at the left margin indented 5 to 7 characters depending on the machine. Well, this particular machine has that feature as a separate key function. So your margin release key is here, but the upper part that says auto pair, that's auto paragraph. You push that and it will do that auto paragraph indenting when you do the carriage return with the carriage return key. There is a second carriage return switch or key right here. So you not only have a carriage return on the right side of the keyboard you would expect it, there's one on the left as well. Yes, how cool is that? So this next key is a single function key, and it's labeled as El Marge. And, you know, I'm from New Mexico, and of course I'm thinking it's Spanish, but no, it stands for electric margin. So the margin setting is set using this key in conjunction with the spacebar and or backspace. Okay, so my current margin is situated right here at about 18 or 19. And let's say I want to move the margin back to maybe 12 or 13. So I'm going to press and hold the electric margin, and I'm going to press the backspace, which is off to the camera on the right. And I release it, and that's it. And now, if I do the carriage return, now it's back to the 12. So that's how you set both the left and the right margin, pressing and holding the electric margin and using either the spacebar or the backspace key. And you might notice that I didn't have to use the margin release. When I backspaced from the old margin back to the new one, the electric margin does the margin release feature automatically. So I can just backspace through the old margin to where I want the new one at. In the middle of the keyboard, behind the center, is the tab bar. It is a mechanical tabulator. It is big and wide and easy to hit. I love this tab bar. Quite stylish as well. The Olivetti logo and the Praxis 48, very handsome, this kind of brushed silver finish. Okay, to the right of the tab bar is tab set and tab clear, and it does exactly what you think it does. And to the right of the tab set and clear is normal and max. This is impression. So basically you have it in normal mode for normal typing, and you press max for when you want to use carbons or other kinds of thick stacks of paper. And you notice in the normal mode, the tab set key sticks out a little bit further than the normal and the bichrome setting, so the tab set is quite distinctive. Okay, to the far right now, you have the bichrome setting, so the position that it's in now is the black. You have a stencil setting in the middle, like that, and then you have, where the red showing, is the bottom of the ribbon. So here's your backspace key, and your carriage return key is an L-shaped key, and I've gotten to really like the position of that key. I don't hit it by mistake at all. I really love the shape of it. However, there is one thing we should point out about this particular machine. Is a Spanish keyboard. So what they've done is, normally you would have the plus and equals key up here. Instead, they have the upside down question mark and exclamation mark that is used in the Spanish composition, and some accent marks. I believe this is a dead key. And then your colon, semicolon is to the right of the N, which is next to the L. And what that means is, if I don't think about it, I'm constantly hitting the N instead, because you have to remember that it's up on the next row over to the far right to get to the apostrophe. So that is just unique to this particular machine being a Spanish keyboard. The rest of the keyboard, it looks like a standard US keyboard, except the cent symbol is above the 6. You do have the exclamation mark above the 1, and of course shift and shift lock, and your second carriage return key on the left. So as far as the keystroke, how far do you have to press the keys? It is less than 5 millimeters. It's probably one of the shortest key throws of any electric typewriter I know of, and very quick and responsive. So several of the keys are auto repeat keys. Of course, the space bar is, if you push it down to second depth. The X key is. The period is. And what would have been the plus equals key is also an auto repeat key, as well as the underscore hyphen. So the ribbon cover articulates up and forward on these brackets, reminiscent of a Smith Corona 6 series ribbon cover. And it has these metal levers extending down, and these are designed to hold the ribbon spools in place without them needing the special Olivetti shoulder nuts. The other distinctive feature of this typewriter are the ribbon spools. Instead of being positioned horizontally under the ribbon cover, they're situated almost vertically. They're sitting at a reclining angle, like maybe 60 or 70 degrees. And they use the Olivetti spools with a larger size hole, but instead of using the nuts to hold them on securely, there's a pin on the bottom of this plastic spindle that engages a hole in the spool. And so they don't really need the nuts. And also those brackets on the bottom of the ribbon cover also come very close to touching, so they kind of keep them secured in place. So it has the forked ribbon reversing guides here, and the vibrator right here is very easy to thread the ribbon through. You kind of just go behind it, underneath, and back up into the inner slots. Very easy to thread. You have a card guide that has a plastic liner. It's a metal card guide with a plastic sleeve on it, which is cool. And then it has two very large card guides that go the full width almost of the carriage. So really good for aligning your typing position and everything. On the right side you have your platen knob, and every click of the platen knob is a half line. So you can do superscripts and subscripts. You have your carriage release button, which there's one on each side. They're nicely flush with the top of the carriage frame and quite stylish. This toggle switch is your paper release lever. You push it toward the rear and it releases the feed rollers and lifts out the paper bale, so you can remove the paper quite nicely. The paper bale has a paper scale on the front of it, and it has the serrated metal rollers very similar to the Studio 44, and also the paper bale itself is articulated on the end so that it finds its own center, so both rollers always touch the platen, which is a nice feature. Behind the paper table, you have the paper guide itself, and then you have these centering guides that enables you to center the paper on the platen. Okay, the left side of the carriage, first of all, in the back is your temporary line spacing disconnect. So you can toggle that back, and it gives you free control of the platen. You flip it back, and now you've returned to the same line spacing. And I must say, I really love the styling of these toggle switches. They really do kind of look space-agey. The line spacing lever has 4 positions. 1, a dash for 1.5, a position for 2, and a position for 3 line spacing. And then the left-hand carriage release button is here. Here's your left platen knob, and as the right one is, every click of the platen knob is a half line, and the big green button on the left platen knob is your permanent disconnect for your line spacing. That is, when you alter this, your line spacing is permanently changed. So it's nice to have both the temporary and the permanent. The card guides articulate, they're spring-loaded, and they articulate, and they cover the full width of the carriage. And one of the nice things about having such a wide card guide is feeding paper into the machine. It usually feeds right underneath the paper bale rollers without any hang-ups at all. One of the other distinctive features of this machine is on the bottom of the carriage in front is a reverse paper scale, and this is used for determining the center of a typing line. You'll notice on the paper bale scale, the maximum length of your typing line is 112 characters on this machine. But you'll notice on the reverse scale on the bottom of the carriage, it only goes up to 56, which is half that length. And that's because this is used for centering your titles on the top of the page. This will tell you what line position to begin your title at to have it centered on the page. On the bottom of the machine, facing toward the front, on the bottom of the keyboard, is the touch control, this green knob. If you move it to the left, you will lighten the touch. If you move it to the right, it'll progressively make the touch harder. This distinctive cantilevering of the keyboard out in front of the body of the typewriter, some writers have suggested was a derivation of an American-style electric typewriters from the 1950s. Also resembles some radio teletype machine keyboards that stuck out in front of the body of the machine as well. Very distinctive, very pragmatic, and it harkens to, you can think of it as the Mad Men era of the 1960s office, with an Italian flair to it. Ettore Sottsass, like many Italian designers, was originally trained as an architect, and that background might help explain the architectural look of the Praxis 48 typewriter that Sottsass designed for Olivetti. I've seen this Olivetti logo on other Olivetti manual machines, but I think no Olivetti typewriter embodies the shape of this logo better than the Praxis 48 itself. Well, this typewriter came with the owner's manual, Olivetti Praxis 48, a rather diminutive. So some of the features that Olivetti is bragging about in this manual is, first of all, flying caps. It will not allow the typing to happen until the shifting cycle is complete to prevent flying caps. Here's another problem that they were trying to fix here is shading or ghosting. Frequently when you type common letter like the TH of the word the, a fast typist can sometimes type it simultaneously almost. This machine is designed to prevent you from over-typing 2 letters simultaneously. It'll jam up the machine and you'll have to hit the backspace key to continue. And that's just to prevent you from making typographical errors on the paper. Then, being able to prevent crowding or piling of letters, it won't allow the second character to be typed until the first character is completely done typing. But what I thought was interesting here is they're bragging about the speed of the machine, and they're saying it's capable of printing up to a pace of 840 keystrokes per minute. And I was thinking to myself, how many words per minute is that? 840 divided by 5. Is 168 words per minute. I think these electric typewriter machines as a class of typewriters represents a writer's dilemma. If you love typewriters and if you love writing, especially with typewriters, there's a dichotomy there because on the one hand, electric typewriter machines are generally heavier, bigger than manual machines and require, of course, an electric outlet, and they have a little bit of a motor noise to them, some worse than others. Those are the downsides. But the upsides, especially on a machine like this, is blazingly fast typing speed and some functionality like in this one built into the Praxis 48 to minimize the possibility of typographical errors caused by poor technique. It really is a machine that can put words down on paper as fast as you can think of them. In that regards, if you're the kind of a person who likes to write from a fixed office at home, and you have, of course, electricity at home, these kind of machines might be the best kind of machine for workhorse writing. But choosing to use an electric typewriter machine isn't as romantic of a thought as a classic-looking manual machine, especially a classic-looking portable machine that you can take with you. That being said, to be honest with you, in my own experience, I don't really know how much serious writing I've ever done at a coffee shop with a typewriter. I think my more serious writing happens at home, which might be the place for having a good quality Type Bar electric. I'll leave you with those thoughts to think over. And as always, stay creative and have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye for now.